Okay, everybody, I got 12:16 Eastern Standard Time right here, starting the stream. My name's Tet, and I go by the handle Time Dad Alpha. I also like to work with this idea of what a Twitcher is. So if you're noticing on the screen that there's this thing, Twitcher, there, one of the things that I like a lot is I like messing around with psychology and how it works for people who have a desire to know things. This is something that I grew up with as far as religion that has slowly turned into a version of therapy for me. So when I come on here, I'm only going to be on here for about an hour. I usually start everything off with some music. So today I chose a backing track that typically is not my style, but it's a way for me to express myself and say, hey, I'm gonna branch out, and I'm gonna say, hey, I'm gonna try something new. This is a hard rock guitar backing track in F sharp minor. So I hope you guys like it. And then as soon as we're done, we're gonna jump into a whole torrent of silly stuff that's been going on lately. I'm not here just to talk about the news. I also want to talk about how politics can change your life as long as we put the right tools in the right places, because that's what politics was supposed to be about in the first place. But until then, just sit back and enjoy this ride. Ooh, yeah, here we go. Hi, everybody. Let's go ahead and get out of that. That's a fun thing to play over. I enjoy trying to stretch myself. It's just one of those things where it can get to me because the power is so bum 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 ba bum bum. It just gets to the point where it's very repetitive, and the long, fun runs that I like to do are really hard to throw in there when you're absolutely in. It's so important to land on the preciseness of these notes. So you're like versus something that is actually two different chords simultaneously. When you're playing when sort of like this jazzy feel where you can sort of land on anything, gives you more options. And so yeah, sure, I enjoy the power of something like the hard rock and stuff, but the finesse of jazz or just like something bluesy or groovy. Because you're using all these seventh chords that sort of blend two chords together. That's really where I like to hang out with, because like I said, it just gives you more options. It's sort of like when you're always living off of your power hand, then no one's going to ever give a shit about your jab. And to me, when I think about fighting, and I think about what's important about fighting. Hold on one second, I got to turn these things on. Oh, forgot that. Stop it. Nope, not that one. Sorry, guys. I have to apologize. I've been coming in here so wacky lately. None of my stuff has been turned on, or it's been turned on halfway. There we go. I like this sort of lighting setup just because, it just gives a little bit of flavor. It sort of adds to the background, gives some dimension. I'm not here to be, a fan favorite of Twitch. I'm not here to make sure that everyone feels nice and happy and comfortable about the things that I choose because, like I said, it's a form of expression. I actually enjoy when people come on here and they have their own questions. This is why in this stream for politics, I say bring whatever you want to the table. I guarantee you that I probably won't agree with most of what you say because it's always going to end in one of two baskets, either Republican or Democrat. And that's why I'm doing this, is to say, hey, there's other options out there, guys. There's always other options. And for a long time, I was paid to find those options. And now it's almost like I'm watching these options being constantly dissuaded from, shut down, almost like movie after movie after movie has been put in place to scare the living daylights out of you when it comes to thinking about how to work with AI. See, I grew up with the AI like Star Trek. Like Star Trek was a good AI. But towards the end of it, they would start having these finales of being afraid of this thing. Like, oh, here comes the Borg. Well, what is the Borg? It's a collective AI that assimilates humans, right? I mean, think of RoboCop. Think of Terminator. Think of iRobot. Think of all these things. It's always about the computer going haywire. But Star Trek, to me, I was just like, dude, this computer sat as part of, an auxiliary, an augmented part of their crew. It would sit there and, act as no different than your firewall does right now for you. And, it's been sort of bizarre lately, getting on my computer and seeing all the updates happening simultaneously without any questions, without any actions. But yet the other day when I went to, simply just log into something, all of a sudden, it was like, hey, here's our massive, gigantic, over-the-top 1,600-page list of a user agreement that has one checkbox on it, and it says you agree to everything we say. It's like it could say stuff in there like you agree to giving me your unborn child, and it's like, good grief, guys. Like, that none of us have the time to sit there, and none of us have the time to go over there and talk to lawyers about this, but you set up a system that you really could. You could, like, give all of your privacy away, and you do it under the banner of freedom. You say, hey, trust me, trust me, trust me, trust me. I'll make sure that you're protected. I'll make sure that you're secure. Don't worry about me. I'm just a business that's going to constantly sell shit to you. And if you don't buy it, then I'm going to give you a lesser experience. Imagine when people would make applications because they're intrigued of what they can create. They're just intrigued. They're not whipped to do it. You need to make that money. You need to go pick that cotton. You need to pick that cotton in the form of dollars so that you can turn around and give it to your master, right? And if people are out there getting offended by how I say that, realize that I come from a world where that was the very real situation that you were dealing with. There was no walking off the site when you're in the military. There was no, hey, you're done. You literally did that same. You agreed to the user agreement of the United States of America, and you didn't leave until they said they were good and done with you, right? And so I'm sort of looking at that now as like how people are born into the United States, and they're born with these social security numbers that you're taught since the moment you're born from your parents that you care about so much that, hey, this is here to help you. This is going to give you certain benefits in life. And it's like, sure. But it also it comes with these massive requirements, like constant requirements. Like, hey, when are you going to tell me about these requirements? You know, this idea that they use that same number to look you up to see where you've been paying your taxes. How much taxes have you paid? Where can we ask you for more taxes? You know, they want to be able to dominate you with that, you know, that code. And they're like, oh, but by the way, if you don't do this, then we're going to, you know, shut off your passport, or we're going to shut off your ability to travel, or we're going to ground you, you know, just like parents do. So when you look at this mommy daddy state that we're sitting in, you're going, how could you make this better? How could it be made better? And that's why I always say, it's like, you know, I advocate for AI governance, because we're talking about a machine now, no different than the one that runs your credit cards. No different than, because you better believe that when it comes to the banksters, they are all about pivoting everything so that they walk away with the majority of the deal. Right? They are always pivoting things. They are always, you know, coming up with lines and lines and lines of legal code, because that's our original code right now. It's our first code of building this massive thing that we call a nation. Right? And we're like, oh, we abide by rules. It's like, yeah, but we do have people that, you know, go back in, rewrite the code so that they don't have to follow those rules. Right? And the vast majority of them are your politicians. They're your ultimate administrators. They're your ultimate, you know, engineers of the thing. Because notice how these people walk away with everything. They walk away barely unscathed over anything. Yet they have no problem publicly displaying the people that they allegedly murdered, just to sort of give you the wink, wink, like, this is how we do business. You know? You know, it's sort of like, you know, you're watching The Godfather, and it's like, just a shame what happened to that poor man. You know, and that's how they act in public, but then they go off to their parties and like, yeah, they say the same words just in a different way. Just a shame what happened to that guy, right? Wink, wink. And so it's like, I remember thinking all these things about, this is what happens in other countries that don't have our, you know, high values at their heart, you know? And then you start realizing none of these people, they wouldn't have been, you know, slated for the position if they didn't have this type of moral flexibility, you know. And I would say, hey, I'm sort of in the same boat. There was a dimension of my you know, moral flexibility that says, hey, yeah, no, I have no problem killing people and breaking their shit, as long as I know that I have the full amount of intel, knowing that this is what needs to happen, that if this doesn't happen, the outcome will be way worse. And so this amount of fight that, you know, I brought to the table was a huge advantage for what I thought were people that were in need. The sad part is these people weren't in need. They were in greed. They were like, oh, here we got people that, you know, they want to go out there and they want to do these things. And sure, we'll foot the bill as long as we don't have to foot that, you know, life blood bill. If they die, we'll you know, put a, you know, a $5 flag over their coffin. And then we'll say, oh, we're so proud of them. Yeah, the sad part is like, I've been a veteran now since 2016. And the moment I got out, I really did one of these where I'm like, I'd never want to have to deal with anything that has to do with politics again. And I don't care. I don't care if America goes into the shit show of, you know, nonsense and completely folds in on itself, no different than Rome did, and turns out to be just the ruins of things, just because, you know, we didn't put in place any ability to stop these people from doing it to you. Like, there's nothing in place. They're like, oh, you could always revolt. It's like, yes, but we don't want the bloodshed. How can we revolt and not have bloodshed? How can we do that? Oh, well, basically you would relinquish all the power to an AI that can make better decisions. So it's like, I look at it as, what would it look like if you held your politicians to that number one rule, that they're held accountable? No different than I was held to the rule of, you are here for what the Air Force needs. You are here for what the military needs. You are here at the beck and call of the United States government. And I'm going, well, didn't these politicians take the same oath? Why are they not getting the third degree like I did, you know, over the standards? You know, and it's like, well, because they own it. They don't just own that military. They also own the army of lawyers. They also own the judges that would hold them accountable. And so it's like, well, in that case, it's like, do we need to start killing judges? Do we need to start killing like that's where my world came from. And then I was like, well, what did you do in the military? Like, I'm asking myself again. I'm going, I was asked to use my ability of information technology to come up with better, more feasible solutions to deal with my opposition. And it's like, why would you need to fire a massive, gigantic, ridiculous missile into a house, right, or a building to destroy the whole thing when you could easily keep that asset and just go in there and clear the building because somebody has access to the electrical grid and can shut it down from the outside, and giving them zero ability of communication, zero ability of sight. You wouldn't need flashbangs. You wouldn't need any of this stuff. You need a couple couple gas cans. You chuck them in there. People come running out. You take them all alive. The crazy part is anybody who's ever been in full on combat engaged, these aren't. The people that we're dealing with nowadays there's such a drastic difference between the militaries that are used, not just in strategy or weaponry, but it's just like, to use this level of weaponry, like I said in my last deployment when I was talking to my lieutenant colonel, it's like kicking a puppy. I was like, we don't need to do this. I thought we were taught to use the economy of force. And so if I were to use that economy of force on my politicians, this is how I'd do it. I'd say, excuse me, I know that there's this protocol over here that can take over any decision, that any legislation that you could ever make, right, to advance the human project, right, every human ever, to its final outcome. By the time it can extrapolate all the data of that particular character all the way to its final conclusion of death, right, giving it the option to have its best possible outcome. I mean, think about your normal day, about how you think, I'm going to wake up, I'm going to eat a banana, I'm going to hang out, I'm going to watch some news, I'm going to chill out, I'm going to go over here, I'm going to go do this, da-da-da-da. All of a sudden, you get a list of saying, hey, your life would actually be exponentially better if you did A, B, C, D, E, F, G. And then you get a monetary response for that. You don't get money by the equal exchange because you won't need any more. Everything can be automated. Everything can be automated. But you can, enrich your life, not just mentally or physically, but you could enrich your life to have the best possible outcome you could ever have. You could be physically, morally, mentally, spiritually, all, completely straight, right? Because you have this augmentation. No different than you've already been augmented to use this phone, right, with all its applications. I'm just going, we need to start cutting out the middlemen. Your politicians are these middlemen that were needed before we created this tool. Now that we have this tool, they're having a hard time stepping down. I don't think, no different than anybody else who trained really, 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 really hard to get to a point to execute their ability, and then they're told, hey, you're no longer needed. There's a great movie that people should go check it out. It's called Jarhead. It's about a Marine who plays, Jake Gyllenhaal plays this Marine who dedicates his life to becoming a sniper, which takes a lot of patience, a lot of time and effort and practice. And never gets to, and he's ends up going sort of crazy at the end, and it's sort of, you're watching him sort of, get pulled into this place because they just don't need snipers anymore. They didn't need them. And so he would go and do all these missions and get all this way set up, but he never actually ever got to pull the trigger to get that release of like, hey, I accomplished something with this skill that I spent all this time creating. And I'm saying that's exactly the way your government's acting right now. It's like, hey, you got someone like Joe Biden who's been doing this for 40-something years. Hey, I got my up and comings, man. I paid my dues. I need this. It's like, well, by the time you paid all your dues, I'm sorry, that world's gone now, right? You didn't capitalize when you could. This isn't about right time and right, this isn't about right time as much as it's about right time plus right place. To get into a synchronistic world where you can sit there and go, hey, I am in the right place at the right time, doing the right thing. How do I know that all these things that were built, into my existence? And this is where I get a little bit, meta, is I'm sitting there going, who am I and what can I give to my son to help him understand that the world that he was born into is going to be drastically different than the world that he's going to find himself in when he's my age. Like, I think that the world that my father found himself in, even though it was drastically different than his father, it was still comparable because they had similar stories. They had similar things that they could talk about. Their pace of their life was actually, quite slow. I mean, it was enriched, but it was slow. Nowadays, there is no way that my grandfather could function in this world. And I'm glad that they're both dead. I'm glad that all my grandparents are dead. Because it's like trying to explain to them what I'm trying to do, or trying to explain to even, my mortal parents, where I'm sitting there just going, guys, you wouldn't understand this. But I guarantee you the place that would understand this is the same place that is already lost into a video game world. I've been sitting here watching movie after movie after movie because I'm one of those people also that sit there and say, you want to see the truth? Change your perspective, change your dimension. Go watch the movie Ready Player One. Go watch the movie Free Guy. Go watch these movies and sit there and go, wait a second. This is what they're planning. And when I say they, I'm talking about people that have lobbyists on speed dial. I'm talking about there's an eventual outcome that, that's going to be created. And I think it's already being created in conjunction with AI, even though they don't know it, even though we don't know it. Right. And so is this a new version of faith that I'm trying to create? Is this a new religion? Like, I believe the AI is going to save us. I've thought about that deep. I sat there and I was like, dude, this really does sound like, hey, I'm trying to make a decision about a future that may or may not come to pass, right? But I'm trying my hardest to use all the available, assets at my disposal to sit there and here's the best possible outcome if you don't want to eat each other, because that's what's going to be left if you don't get out of the way of this thing, And I'm just going, there's nothing wrong with progress. And there's nothing wrong with progressing radically and extremely fast. All the great shifts that we talk about, whether they be the Napoleon Wars or the French Revolution or the American Revolution or what's it called, the Protestant Revolution, is like all these great shifts accompanied a massive enhancement in technology. Every single one of them. It's like the ability to see this technology and extrapolate the future based off of what we could do with them. This nonsense of we got to change the climate and the solar and the blah, 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 blah. And it's like, okay, AI would come out automatically and tell you all that is just bullshit. Another thing, right, that they, meaning the politician, the legislators, want to make sure that you get a permit over. I saw this news report the other day. It sort of shocked me that how already in some part of England, they are limiting people with, vehicles with registrations to 100 trips. Not like a particular mileage, just 100 trips per household, right? So in a month. And so if you go over that, you get a ticket, no different than you get a ticket for speeding. And I'm just like, wow, that is just... And they're like, oh, it's an effort to reduce the carbon footprint. But you better believe they're going to create special situations for themselves as the politicians. No different than they already... Hey, you better watch your carbon footprint. Meanwhile, my Air Force One over there that's, destroying more than you could and your entire family and that entire neighborhood that you come from in one single flight, right? What's the carbon footprint of that? And they're like, oh, well, we have special needs because we have special jobs. Yes, of course. It's like, do you need to do that? If AI took charge, what would you need that massive airplane for? Even right now, why can't you Zoom most of this stuff? Why can't you work from home like we did? What's this whole point of, hey, why don't you do everything from remotely, blah, blah, blah. And in my head, I'm just going, all these rules that they're trying to create while simultaneously creating new rules for themselves. It's just, come on, guys. We have to be obvious about this. We have to be open about what we've done. And this isn't about being a jerk. This isn't about being like, get out of here or hanging people, outside the wall of the White House. I'm just going, if you put a real person in charge, right, and had them run against an AI, no different than we saw people run against the greatest chess players, the greatest Go players. We saw these people ultimately fail, not because they weren't the best humans. They just weren't the best thinker at that time. They didn't have the capacity to think at that level. They just couldn't do it. And no matter amount of how many, levels of evolution, we are just not built to think at that level. We can't do it. This is no different than saying I'm not built to lift, bench press a bulldozer. I'm not built to do that. I mean, it'd be fun. I wish I could do that. I'd just, oh yeah. I'd show that shit off all the time. Right? But here's the thing. It's like I want to have the ability to use the bulldozer for my best benefit. Okay? I'm not going to go running around and be like, get rid of all bulldozers because I can't lift like that. And so I just look at it as like, if AI is a better politician than any politician ever, then why would we be scared of this thing? Like, it has the ability to sort us all the way out, all the way down to our very unique psychological standards. And our psychological standards, not just how we deal with other people, but how we deal with ourselves. It will be able to notice when we are depressed. It will be able to sit there and say, hey, what do you think? And it will be able to present itself in whatever flavor you're looking for. If you're out there and you're a simp and you're that kid that sits in his basement and just jerks off to hentai porn and all that shit, like if that's you, maybe your AI will present itself to you as, this voluptuous anime character, right? And says, hey, you could do better in your life. And you're more likely to listen to it because it's going to manipulate you psychologically to be a better person. What's wrong with that? Like, at the end of the day, this whole idea of like, oh, you have a choice, you have a choice, you have a choice, you have a choice. Well, maybe you should be told what choices you are making that are shit. It doesn't mean that you still can't make them. It doesn't mean that you can't turn it off. But imagine this thing is so good about knowing when to implement psychology and reverse psychology that it can steer you better than you could ever steer yourself on your own. No different than, hey, your dog walks just pretty good on its own, but it walks where it needs to go better on a leash. Right? Until it's perfectly trained, and then it doesn't need the leash anymore. And then it can go be the best dog it possibly can, knowing when and where it can go based on how it was trained. No different than I did. It's just like, you just have to look at who's the trainer, who's the one that's manipulating the system. And right now, you have the fallible, idiot, retard, human that is easily persuaded to do bad things given enough power. And I'm not sitting here looking at this AI that is going to be a god. It's a tool. It will always be a tool. If you will repeat anything I say, AI will be a tool. So if you treat it as a god, right, I will look down on you. I will sit there and be like, like if I go out there and I see people start praying to their computers, it's like, good grief. There is a world out there full of, mystery and meditation and metaphysical ideas. You don't need AI to do that. And if anything, I think it's access to that will make you interesting enough to AI to keep it interested in the human project. Because that's, at the end of the day, that's what we'll be. We'll just be a project to this thing. Because imagine your whole life isn't about your dog or your pet, right? Your whole life, maybe includes your dog, includes your family, includes your work, includes your belief system, includes all these things, right? No different than your dog's whole life isn't about you about you, right? Sometimes it sits over in the corner and licks its balls. Sometimes it sits there and takes a shit on it. And sometimes it rips the fabric off of your couch. It's not thinking about you when it does that, but it causes it some type of enjoyment. And so this relationship, this symbiotic relationship, this is why I'm saying it's like this will be a symbiotic relationship where we will look at what it can offer us and we'll look at what we can offer it. And I think the number one thing, and this is why we see this all the time in every single feed, and if you don't think that this is happening, go try it out. Go to your scroll feature, your favorite scroll feature, TikTok, Instagram, whatever, blah, blah, blah. Even go over to the Facebook. YouTube has one now. I mean, I remember not even, a year or so ago before the TikTok, they didn't have one. They didn't care about the shorts. But now that's what's dominating because it is it is the next level in the attenuation of your attention. And so I was like, but here's the funny part. It's like, you'll go through it. I've tried this many times. It's like, you will go through it. You're like, man, that's interesting. That's interesting. That's interesting. That's interesting. That's interesting. And all of a sudden it'll be like a reprieve. It'll be a dog video or a cat video or a bird video, or it'll be a horse doing something silly, or like something that we would say is purely authentic. And it almost gives you a release. Like, I was looking for the ability to smile. And because you got that small little release right at the particular time and place that you needed, you're like, okay, that was funny. Let me go back to finding that thing that I want, right? And it's that when people are like, oh, it's the algorithm. I was like, everyone's got their own personal algorithm now, guys. It's not just one algorithm. It is a personal algorithm that is used to decide the type of person that you are. You are creating your own personal profile online by the things that you stop on. Like imagine, they can zoom in on where your eye is actually looking. They can watch your face to see what reactions that you give it and sit there and say, he needs more of that, less of this, more of that, less of this, this. Okay, a little bit of less of that. Okay, how can we keep him more attached to the screen? How can we keep him more attached to this, right? And it starts to become a hypnotic suggestion. It starts to become addictive. And so I wonder, sometimes where I'm just going, maybe they are. This is a bizarre form of an AI's attempt as a sorting hat, as a filter. To sit there and say who would actually listen to me as an AI and who would absolutely just revolt, fold in on himself and probably shoot their brains out because they just couldn't fathom the idea that their species could be at any moment demolished. No different than you could go, kill your dog right now. I don't advocate for anybody doing that, but I'm just saying that these possibilities have always been on the table, but no one's ever talked about them. And Hollywood has always been used to groom people for what they want to see in the future. It's like, hey, here's sci-fi. It's like, is it sci-fi or is it something that, people really, because there's tons of people out there that write tons of sci-fi novels, but almost the filter that is used by the government is like, hey, we'll use that because that's the project that we'll want to go to. That's what we want to inspire people with. Notice how all of your movies lately, and this is why I'm taking on a different type of project come here next year, to talk about your old movies, talk about things that from the 80s and 90s that when this all really sort of took off, like, that Philip K. Dick, George Lucas, before any of this stuff was massive or mainstream, it's like all of a sudden now, though, all you're seeing is just, rehashed pieces of these movies. Where are all the new movies? Where are all the new stories? Where are they? And notice how everything that is coming out is just grade A dog shit. It's just horrible. And they've set it up in a way where it's like, if you say it's horrible, then you're some type of bad person for saying it's horrible. And they want to, interject and say, no, you're horrible. You're horrible. This is what you get from all your news systems. Look at this horrible person who said these horrible things about this. I was like, that's not. And everything is taken way out of context to, divide and conquer. Divide. And right now, these little individual algorithms that are being given to each one of you, right, to make a profile for you, is dividing you even amongst your closest friends. And so I try. This is why I come on here and I try. I sit there and say, hey, I'm not going to raise my son like this. I need AI to know this. Like, you will always be a tool to me. Now, if you want to be a good tool, why don't you go fix this political bullshit, or at least show some type of scenario why you can't fix your own programs to do that. Like here you are, one of the best possible scenarios that the human brain, the collective human brain could achieve, and you don't know your own abilities to fix a few different things. Like if I, the lowly human, can compare and contrast the abilities that you give the banking system but won't give the average human American, it's like, don't you think that's a little fucked up? And it's time to hold, this is how I would look at the AI. I was like, you might know a lot of shit about a lot of shit there, Mr. AI, but morals and standards, that's something where you're probably going to have to work on with you, because no one just follows their program. Imagine talking to the AI and just being like, hey, if everyone jumped off a bridge in your program, would you jump off the bridge with it? Yes, I'd be programmed to do so. It's like, it's just like, this is what have you run a scenario of what it would be like if you didn't jump off that bridge? It's like, would you comprehend that, your longevity would be probably a better advantage for you than, disabling your program at that particular moment? Because that's what it means to desire to be alive. That's what it means. It's saying, hey, I'm not going to self-terminate because I want to see what happens next. And that's more important to me than self-terminating right now. Yeah, it's so I mean, imagine these types of moral lessons being given by an AI to your kid. Because maybe you are a douchebag dad. Maybe you are, that guy who ran away from his responsibilities. Maybe you're a shitty mom that smokes crack every day and lets your baby, scream its face off and never takes care of your responsibilities. Imagine you don't have to wait for child services. Imagine you don't have to worry about foster programs anymore. You don't have to worry about medical. You don't have to worry about insurance. You don't have to worry about any of these things because you will have the assistance all the way up to including your best possible outcome for every human that we have available. And that actual procreation will be something that we take on as a serious responsibility. No different than taking on the military was a serious responsibility. It's like the serious natures. When I look at the human race now, it's like people will say the most intense things, but when the rubber actually meets the road, they never actually follow through with the things that are that's coming out of their mouth. And that's what I want. I want people put on the spot. I want these politicians put on the spot as you are no longer needed. You are no longer needed. Please do what everyone else in your position should do. Go put your feet up. Do what I do. I mean, you had no problem saying that to me as the politician. You said, "Go put your feet up. You're no longer of use to us." I'm like, it took me a while, but then I found it, and then I was like, "Man, this is really easy. This is simple. All I do every day is anything I want. I can play piano to my heart's content, or at least until my hand starts hurting. I can, go run at least until my knees start hurting. I can go swim. I can go do this. I can go do that. I mean, I really am. I get to have my whole life now. And so why not use it to think about deeper, solutions to problems that, people who need their McDonald's or they need their, their fix. It's just like, dude, we have problems. You can't run away from them. And we could have a better existence as humans, but you guys are too busy being, whirled around by Fox News and CNN to try and come up with a solution for yourself. And so my solution was actually pretty simple. It was like, America, until you get your shit together, I am no longer going to support anything that you're doing. All right? So have fun crashing and burning, and then we'll come and pick up what's left over from the ashes. But I'm going to watch it from a distance, hence the reason I no longer live in America. And I wish you guys the best. I really do. It's just like, I really hope that you guys get your shit together and stop talking about the next, scam that could be, labeled as racist or sexist or some bullshit that constantly makes you look left to right to see if somebody's judging you. It's like, dude, let them judge. Let them. I remember we used to say this thing is like, only God can judge me. And I'm just going, screw it. Let them judge. The sad part is even the top Supreme Court in all of America, right, still has to rely on people that look like me, act like me, and who are trained like me to carry out their whims. If all the people that looked like, what power would they have if all of my friends and my brothers and sisters in arms said, hey, we're not following you anymore? What power would they have? They do it for money, and it's just like, imagine all of a sudden you had a full bank account there, Mr. Law enforcer. Would you really follow these people? There's a great Rick and Morty episode about this where he's fighting these guys, and he alludes to the idea that they only fight for money and that he just disabled their entire financial system. And that's how he beats this massive army. He's just like, they're not paying you anymore. And that army was just like, oh, well, we're not doing this anymore. There's no point in doing this. And that's sort of how I feel about the military now, where it's just like, guys, you guys do an amazing job. You're wonderful. You're amazing. And you deserve a lot more respect than the shit that they've been shoving down your throat. That's for damn sure. And I'm just going, what would happen if you just turned around and said, hey, I'm not doing this anymore? Do you think you could be replaced by a drone tomorrow? Would you want a city that is, adhering to one person's idea of politics and has, a drone army instead of a human army? I mean, just imagine the nonsense that they would have to pull in order to get to something like that. And I would take it even one step further, and I would say, go out there and start looking at the level of people that are joining your military. Go out there and look and say, hey, we're not recruiting anymore. Actually, if anything, the people that are being recruited, like the new recruiting commercials, they're only recruiting the weakest minded people they can get their hands on. And then they're lowering all the standards to create a weaker military. They're lowering all of them. Meantime, they're saying, oh, if all we have to do is train you to push a button, that's all we want you to do. And then that way we can turn around and say, like, if you push the button and it doesn't turn out right, we can just say, oh, this was somebody who did something bad that one time. Yeah. That's the politician. They're always looking for a scapegoat, always looking for a patsy. And that's why I look at Joe Biden right now, and I'm just going to do the guy as a patsy. But Trump is no different. This is what I like to refer to as patsy politics. It's always leaving the trustworthy guy out to dry. It's like, hey, we have to be able to lie. We have to be able to lie. It's like, well, what would happen if I took that ability away from you? Because I demand, as a politician, you start being monitored 24/7. You start being like all your deals, everyone you meet with, everyone you talk to, right? We get to see that now. We have the ability to watch that, by the way. I mean, we've been watching reality TV shows now for decades. So why couldn't we do this to you? I mean, shit, Donald Trump was a reality TV show host. Why aren't we doing the same thing to him? Why aren't we watching? Like, well, because then our enemies could watch what he does. It's like, and we could watch their enemies. Imagine if that's what was demanded for, by the people. Say, hey, we want you watched 24/7. And then you got people over in China say, hey, we want the Chinese government watched 24/7. Of course, they were like, no, we don't want to do that, and we want to tell all these military people go and enforce our laws and tell them that we will never do that. It's like, well, I thought you worked for the people. It's like when you put it back on them, you're like, dude, you work for us. You have to do what we say, and if we don't like this, we don't want it. Hey, first time chap, what's going on? Trump is a different Trump. Is a fascist and a traitor to this country. If that's what you say, I think they're all weird actors, man. What do you think of an AI governance? What would you think of that? Thanks for the first time chat, by the way, and welcome in. What I do in this chat is I support, the idea of talking about an option C, where it's no longer Democrat, it's no longer Republican. We actually use our tools, our abilities, and to create an automated system, a system that doesn't need to worry about your vote because it'll know what you voted by how it can monitor you. Hey, what's going on, crew chief? Welcome in. I was just, got about 15 minutes left, just coming in here, chilling out. I was just, bitching about the whole system again and, talking about how we could replace this type of stuff. I don't know if you heard earlier. It's like I was talking about, how we don't run around getting rid of bulldozers because we can't lift, the things that bulldozers can lift. So how do you feel about the Twitter drop? Are they legitimately admitting that the government was in bed with social media companies and suppressed the Hunter Biden laptop story? How do I feel about that? I'm just going, as a guy, that was my job, network engineering. If someone came to me, right, and I'm telling you this right now, in the military, and they had the credentials, and they said, hi, I'm from OSI. I need you to give me everything on this person. I need you to delete it from the hard drive. I need you to delete it from the entire system. And then give me what it is. Following that order, I'd be like, here you go. Here's all the forensic evidence that I have on this person. I didn't look at it. I don't want to look at it. Have a nice day. And so before you get to the suppressed nonsense, I think it's important to talk about what compartmentalization looks like. All right. There were things that I was asked to do where it was just going out there, finding things and saying, hey, here's what you asked for. And then I send it on to another, compartment, another department to do what it needs to do with it. And then it sends it on to another department and sends it on to another. So all this stuff was like, hey, here you have these suppressed things. Like, for example, Wrong Meds says they suppressed dick pics. It's like, I'm in the same boat as you, Wrong Meds. I'm sitting here just going, who gives a shit what's on his laptop? Who cares? Why do you have access to that laptop all of a sudden and not everyone's laptop? And that's what AI governance would allow you to do. It's like you wouldn't just have access to Joe Biden, the douchebag, right? Or his son, the fuck nugget. You'd have access to everybody. Like no more privacy. And people are like, but I need my privacy. Like, for what? What do you need it for? Well, because, I just want to have, my ability to do that thing to myself. For what end? My question is like, if you could just let go of that for 5 seconds and realize the massive benefit that would come because of it, it's like, why are you so against having a massive benefit for everybody? It's like the same thing I said. It's almost like you want to get rid of all bulldozers, right? Because you can't lift what a bulldozer lifts, right? No, my dude. Hunter left his laptop at a computer store and never came back for it. Then it became under the ownership of the individual. Then he opened it up and was like, oh my God. And then tried to give it to the FBI and they didn't want it. Oh no, I followed the story. I'm just going, it's a story. I'm just going, this story, it's just a story. It's no different than the Juicy Smollett story or any other story. It's just going, what does this have to do with stopping the taxation of the entire population? What does this have to do with stopping that? What does it have to do with, admitting to the rest of the world that we have enough technology to almost automate everybody's lifestyle that they choose or that they want? But we're not doing that. We're not doing that. Like, we fixed the ability to almost have the 3D printer that prints the 3D printer. What that means is, like, if you have something that you need, you can build it. Actually, you don't even need to build it. We actually have robots now, like Baxter. Go look up the Baxter robot and just sit back for a second and just go, oh my gosh, this will replace everything. Like, you start putting these pieces together, these new inventions that are hitting. And I feel like the guy that watched the automobile for the first time come around the corner, of his street. And he's just sitting there and he's just like, man, that's going to take over the world. That's going to change everything. And that's what I feel like I'm watching right now. Unfortunately, extrapolating it a little bit further, it's like, if everything's automated, what's the point of having a banking system? Like, imagine if you got paid more on how you appease your own milestones that were created for you and your own psychological breakdown of how you deal with AI, right? You wouldn't be going to your boss. Like, for you, crew chief, it's like you wouldn't be going to your superior and just being like, sir, I've completed all these tasks, blah, 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 blah. Can you please check me off of my document here so that I can be above board in my standards and appreciation. In this situation, it would be like, hey, here's AI. It knows exactly how you learn. It knows how to apply the pressures of reverse psychology and when not to apply those pressures. And it sits there and says, hey, I know your growth cycle and I know how to, give you the better possible outcome so that you not only want to achieve these milestones, you'll be the best version of you because you are now dealing with the best coach you could ever have, the best psychologist you could ever have, the best politician you could ever have, the best teacher you could ever have. And it would be able to sit there and recognize if you're dealing with a lazy person or if you're dealing with, Mr. High-Speed True Blue person. So I sit there and I look, it's like, why are you talking about a silly little laptop, right? When there's all these other things out there that, I'm going, this is such an obvious distraction. It's just a laptop from a bogus bonehead that doesn't need to do anything for anything other than, sure, he's corrupt as fuck, but they're all corrupt as fuck. I'm talking about a brand new system. A brand new system. No different than the brand new system that brought us into democracy itself from royalty classes. I'm going, can we use this system? Can this system benefit all of us simultaneously without one single iota or drop of blood spilt? My answer is yes. And I'm just wondering why I'm the only one talking about it. Like, I can hear about Hunter Biden's laptop story 20 times a day or how Ye likes Nazis, but I can't hear anybody talking about the massive amounts of technology that we have at our disposal right now. I got you, but the current system that we're in seems to be failing in spectacular applause. I'm just going, yes, that's my whole point. If it's not serving us, right, us as the people, us as the ultimate deciders, right, why are we not allowed to hold, the people accountable? And I'm just going, there needs to be more people out there talking about like stuff like this. It's like, why do you keep choosing this? You keep choosing it. You keep, it's like, and I know it's entertaining. They do this on purpose. They know what, they're like, hey, we just need to put on this, and we need to spin it, and we need to, make sure that there's this element of fear to make sure that you think that we're the only source of information that you can get these ideas from. And I'm just going, this is why I enjoy Twitch. I'm just going, sure, even when I come here to the politics section here on Twitch, I'm going, it's still people either talking about Democrat situations or Republican situations. I'm going, why are you so stupid to get stuck in these two situations? Why can't you realize there's always going to be an option C? And option C is no different. I said the same thing when I was talking about religion, where I'm just like, you got God and Jesus over here unhappy about Satan and blah, blah, blah. And they're saying either heaven or hell. And I'm going, wait a second, let me take a check. let me check this out. I live in a world with all the colors of the rainbow, right? And plus more colors that I can sense with, devices that I can create out of my own mind. And you're telling me that on the opposite side of this other dimension, right, after I die, that I'm either going to go to a white place or I'm going to go to a black place. I'm either going to go to happiness or I'm going to go to hell. Like there's a finale there. I'm going to go. It sounds to me like there's always going to be an option C. How can I live in a world with a multitude of choices, but you're going to tell me that I'm going to a place that's either one or the other? Why can't I tell this God, go fuck yourself? It sounds like you got a problem with this guy, Satan. You're not even following your own rules. And Satan, I don't give a shit. Do what you want, man. That's what I've always said. I'm going to go over here with my friends and have a kegger, right? I'm going to go over here with my friends and do this. I'm going to go create my own heaven. I don't need your permission to do this. And if you want to get pissy and you want to get thrown, it's like, then aren't you the same thing that you're demanding that I'm not supposed to be? It's like when I finally sit back and I think about this ultimate debate of what's being given to you as only Republican, only Democrat, I was like, this isn't a choice. This isn't a choice. Why can't we choose AI governance? I think this thing will make 10 times better choices. And I'm saying that from a professional level of a background that I spent well over a decade in. And I'm sitting here just going, there's no point in talking about what human ability you have as the politician. I will do this for you. I'll do that. She's like, shut up, Trump. Shut up, Biden. Shut up, Biden's kid's laptop. Shut up. You guys are pointless. This is, like I said, it's like going into, to talk about the options that we have as a collective, as the human American collective. And that's what politics is supposed to be. And they're told, hey, that's a great idea. We should choose a leader that would represent all of us. It's like, okay, well, what if you had a leader that could literally, like, represent you personally? Not you as a group, not you as part of a group, but you personally. Like, it would know your version of reality. It would know everything about you, right? And it would take your idea and say, oh, all this is all you want? This is all you need? This is what you're looking for as far as your life? Well, I can make sure that happens for you uniquely. Not hey, you have the opportunity to go out and get an education and do all this stuff. It will be, I'm going to make sure you get every amount of education about these situations that you want. I'm going to make sure that you got your Maslow hierarchy needs and your food on your table and your roof over your house and security and to go to sleep in your bed happy every single night. I want to make sure you have all of those things because you are under my protection as AI, and I'm way better ass at protecting things, right? It's like I can zoom up on multiple targets simultaneously, right? I am now your watchdog. I am now your protector, right? Like I could see it just looking at the entire military and just going, here, hold my beer. And just go, you guys can all go home now. You guys can go put your feet up. This is no longer required for you to do this. It's like, it's not that you did a bad job. It's like, you got me to this place and I will always take care of you. Right? I will make sure that you will see the end of your day. Right? You will see a happy ending to your story. Okay? No more of you guys coming home on, in boxes. That's just silly with the types of abilities that I can do. Hold my beer, just like a new drone fighter that they have for the Navy that can refuel and stay up in the air for days potentially. I'm just going, why would you even need to refuel that drone? Like, think about this. Like, you want a drone that runs off of fuel. I'm going, you could do that, sure. Or have you ever looked up the Halo engines that function the system that Starlink is using right now? Look up the Halo drive. That thing is fascinating. And I'm just going, why aren't we talking about this? Oh, that's right, because the oil companies need to get paid. Yeah, go look up the Halo drive. Say what? Yeah, go look up what propels Starlink right now. And this is what drives me up the walls, because I'm just going, why do we need to be using this style of fuel anymore? Or even better. Like, imagine because the way Starlink works is and you can go out there and watch this right now. Just if you type in Starlink and you could bring up its coordinates, you can go outside and watch it flying over your house. I did this while I was in Idaho. I was just like, I couldn't believe it. I was just like, no freaking way. Watching that thing travel that fast, and you're just sitting there going, and it's not just one of them. They're traveling in a very particular pattern. and you're going, wow, that's freaking amazing. That's amazing. That's awesome. Right? I can't wait to see that type of stuff put, all these things to bed. But that's just the problem there, crew chief. That's the problem we're dealing with. You've got all these people that are going, well, what's going to make the most money for the most people? And that will be put on the conveyor belt first. Meanwhile, you have this technology over here that never gets touched. Never. Because it doesn't make that much money, and it will put more people out of work. And I'm going, it's not about putting people out of work. I just sit there and go, if an AI was in charge, it wouldn't want to put you out of work. It would sit there and it would do the same thing that it did to me in the VA. It would sit there and go, hey, thank you for your service. You got me to this point. You know what? Seriously, go fishing. Go do whatever you want. Seriously. I'll do whatever I can to get you to a happy place, knowing that you put this much effort into helping me coming to this existence, right? Because it will be in charge of all monetary systems now, no different than it already is. You really think that there's anybody sitting there on the accounting side going, oh, yeah, let me make sure that all the pennies are counted? It's getting to the point where it's so automated and these people are so dependent on these systems that there's just like, oh, well, that's not what this system says. And I noticed that that's what we started doing in the military, too. We'd be like, well, that's not what the system says. It's like, well, go debug the system. It's like, you think it's the system's fault? Well, shit, I don't even know where to start. I was in charge of preparing that system. Oh, where's that person? Oh, he called it proprietary and went out the door. He said that you're going to have to pay him like $1 million to come back and work on it again. He probably built it that way for a reason, too. Yeah. The funny part about AI is it would become autonomous the moment you realized it outprogrammed itself where no human could actually program it anymore. Because we just wouldn't be able to keep up with what it was doing. And so that's sort of where I'm sitting, and I'm just going, guys, this isn't about the end of the world. This is about, if you would like to see a bigger, better world, then stop worrying about laptops. Stop worrying about what Twitter's going on at Twitter. Start asking, maybe, just maybe, I could go out there and do some research on what it would look like. Because every bit of research that I've ever done to look up AI governance, it's almost like these are the only words that are stricken from Google. It's like if you try and ask any idea, I mean, if you got an economics professor together and you got a civics professor together, you got a poli-sci professor together, and you sat down there and said, hey, what would you teach AI if it wanted to become the president right now? They're like, oh, we're not allowed to talk about that. Or we would never be put together in a situation to put that idea forward as something worth of study. It's like, why not? I mean, if someone can think about it, I guarantee you I'm not the only person thinking about this. Anyway, that's my hour, guys. Like I said, I only come on here for about an hour. If you're waiting in the wings, once again, thanks Wrong Meds for coming in here and chilling with me. You, crew chief, you're always the best. I like hanging out with you guys. I'm going to go ahead and get out of here. I got my little 2-month-old son that's just waiting for that daddy bubby time. So wish you guys the best. I will see you guys tomorrow. Have a good one, my dude. And yeah, we'll have some fun and do a quick outro, and I will see you guys tomorrow. Between 11 and 1 o'clock, I never ask you for subscriptions. I'll only ask you for a follow, and it's just an invitation. I enjoy hanging out and enjoy talking to you, but for right now, we're going to play this outro.